Madness. This is Sparta!
49 years after the Battle of Thermopylae, the Peloponnesian War begins in Greece. The war is mainly between the two classical Greek giants, Sparta and Athens. Both giants fight over the dominance over Greece for 57 years. Sparta, Corinth, Elis, and Tegea form an alliance to create the Peloponnesian League in 550 BCE. This alliance is merely a mutual convenience, and Sparta acts as the leader. In 478 BCE, the Delian League forms as Athens frees many eastern Greek cities from Persian rule. The Delian League grew to about 300 cities with Athens as its leader, and he sought tribute in the form of money, ships, and men across all Delian League members. In 460 BCE, two Peloponnesian League city-states, Megara and Corinth, begin conflict. Sparta supports Corinth, while Athens wanted to sway Megara to join the Delian League. But Sparta disliked their expansion of influence. Meanwhile, spies support the Athens pass to secure their ports with long walls. Meaning through their navy, supplies can be sent from the navy to one of their ports, Piraeus or Phaleron, and then into Athens along the wall. Eventually, Corinth bases Athens in battle, with Sparta remaining out of the conflict, and Peloponnesian League troops are sent to it instead. Meanwhile, Athens is using their dominant navy to campaign around the Aegean. In 457 BC, Athens is defeated in Tanagra because of the aid of Sparta. This sends both armies back home and results with Athens launching campaigns in the coastal region of the Peloponnese region. However, in doing so, their forces are stretched too thin between Egypt and Peloponnese, causing their army to be crushed against the Persian Empire. In 454 BCE, the Delian League treasury moves to Athens to solidify their leadership. With reduced campaigns because of the loss in Persia, Athens sought out a treaty called the 30-Year Peace Treaty in 446 BCE. 10 years later, Athens resumed hostilities, requiring higher tributes to expand their army and navy. In 433 BCE, Athens partnered with Corinth's key colony, Corcyra. Athens sends forces to Corcyra, and Sparta prepares for war, ending the 30-Year Peace Treaty. Between 432 BCE and 430 BCE, Athens demanded Potidaea to remove trade barriers for ships and minerals. Potidaea insists sought protection from Sparta, which they received. Then, the Delian League banned Megara from using Delian League ports by the Megarian decree, hoping to weaken them and forcing Megara to make an alliance with Athens. Sparta tried to appeal this decree, but Athens refused. Sparta knows Athens wants to claim all of Greece for itself, and they dislike that, and so Sparta gathered its allies to oppose Athens. Thebes and Sparta attacked Plataea, and the Spartan king Archidamus led an invasion to Attica, initiating the Second Peloponnesian War. Typically, hostile units in phalanx formations were used, which is warriors being shoulder to shoulder. But now hostile units are incorporated with light infantry and cavalry for dynamical maneuvers. In the Second War, Sparta remained advantageous in land combat, while Athens kept their naval advantage. Eventually, the Peloponnesian League begins to burn crops and knock down fortifications to disrupt the Athenian supply chain. But Athens still had their long walls, tunneling supplies from the navy into the city. Athens knows Sparta would win in a battle on land, and so they stay within their walls, not knowing soon a plague would devastate their city. It's probably now that I should explain that one of the greatest sources we have about this war is from the book The History of the Peloponnesian War, written by Thucydides, who was an Athenian general who was exiled for a failed mission. The book series was unfinished mid-sentence in 411 BCE, 7 years before the end of the war, and 11 years before he was exiled in 422 BCE. It's believed he died before the series could end. As Truzy mentioned before, the book series abruptly ended mid-sentence. Thucydides explained the symptoms of this illness as cold, violent heat in the head, redness and inflammation of the eyes, throat and tongue quickly suffused with blood, breath became unnatural and defeated, sneezing and hoarseness, violent coughing, vomiting, retching, violent convulsions, the body externally not so hot to the touch nor yet pale, a livid color inkling to red, breaking out in pustules and ulcers. WorldHistory.org also summarized that, quote, if the ill were fortunate enough to live beyond the initial period of infection, Thucydides observed that the patient suffered from violent ulceration and severe diarrhea, usually resulting in death. Those who survived the full run of the illness often suffered from disfigurement of their genitals, fingers, or toes, which some were lost, blindness and memory loss of others as well as themselves. Thucydides noticed that in some instances, birds and other animals which usually fed on human flesh were repulsed by the diseased bodies or died themselves from consuming the diseased and rotting flesh, end quote. Though we know lots about the plague symptoms, we won't ever be able to draw a true conclusion. Though there have been DNA tests made, they aren't very reliable as viruses degrade very quickly after death. So we'll never be able to draw a full conclusion as to what caused the plague. By 427 to 425 BCE, the Athenian plague came to an end. At the end, it took about 25% to 35% of the Athenians, which is 35,000 or 100,000 Athenians. The plague also took one of the great military leaders of Athens, Pericles. As the Peloponnesian War rages on, tactics turn brutal. Sparta attacks Athens' revolting tribute city, Lesbos. Athens executes the rebel leaders and pushes Sparta back. Soon after, Plataea falls after months of Spartans starving the city. By now, over 100 cities are sieged, their citizens either slaughtered or enslaved. Seeking an advantage, Athens attacks the Sicilian city of Syracuse and rejects the Spartan peace offering to take advantage of the dominance they momentarily hold. After Spartan general Brasidas and Athens general Cleon both die in battle, the new Athenian leader Nicias persuades Athens into a fragile peace treaty called Peace of Nicias, signed in 421 BCE. It lasts just 6 years as royal commanders refuse to surrender land, causing skirmishes across Greece. Athens restarts the war by invading Syracuse again, but the new Athenian leader, Alcibiades, is accused of disrespecting the gods, causing him to seek refuge in Sparta, and betrays the Athenian war strategy by informing Spartans of their plans. In 413 BCE, Gylippus led Sparta to Syracuse's aid, breaking the Athenian blockade and the naval fleet. Athenian reinforcements failed, and their leader, Nicias, and 30,000 Athenian soldiers are killed, as well as 2/3 of their navy being wiped out. Athens is now crushed, and the Delian League city-states are quickly jumping ship to join Sparta. By 412 BCE, Sparta allies with the former enemy Persia to fund their army for a final blow. Athens begins to demand higher tributes to rebuild the army, but Athenian democracy collapses into a chaotic authoritarian regime before being replaced by the 5,000. Before 11 BCE, Athenian navy is almost back to its former numbers, and in 405 BCE, Sparta has built a massive fleet using the Persian funds. Now, the admiral of the Spartan navy, Lysander, moves his ships to meet Athens in the waters. 130 Athenian ships are captured or destroyed, and 3,000 Athenian soldiers are executed. This forces Athens to surrender, and disbanding the Delian League. This marks the end of the Peloponnesian War, as now Athens is prohibited from building its navy to more than 12 ships and must pay tribute to Sparta. Now Sparta is left as the only giant left standing in Greece, and will control Greece for decades to come.